history of scouting in Radnor is steeped in tradition. Starting with the birth of scouting in America, Wayne 1 was started in 1911, and as noted in an early edition of Boy's Life, they built their own cabin to have meetings in. The chimney of that building remains to this day alone in the woods, holding memories that only it knows. With the onset of World War I, Wayne 1's rank diminished, but a new scouting unit known as Radnor 1 was formed in January 1920. Radnor 1 was originally chartered to St. Martin's Episcopal Church on January 27, 1920. It is this troop that we celebrate today.
Radnor 1's cabin, sitting at the rear of Odorosio Park, used until the early 1960s, much like the cabin before, has left only its chimney. Currently, Radnor Troop 284 is chartered by Wayne Presbyterian Church and is in its centennial year. It now calls an old schoolhouse, Radnor School No. 7, the Scout Cabin, used by the Scouts from the 1960s to present day.
Hi, I'm Clark Pyatt. I'm currently the Scoutmaster of Troop 284. I've been a Scoutmaster now for the last year and a half. Before that, I've been involved with the troop probably since the last decade and a half, and before that I was a scout myself. I was involved with scouting as a Cub Scout, and I still look to those days with a lot of great memories. But my memories of this troop are that of our great summer trips. We have excellent trips from the Adirondacks to Lake George, to this summer when we did a bike trip from Washington to Harper's Ferry, and also another group went to hike another 40 miles.
A center point of Radnor Scouting is the diversity of high adventure that the Scouts have an opportunity to undertake. In addition to the troop's adventures, those seeking a higher degree make the pilgrimage to the Philmont Scout Reservation.
The Appalachian Trail is the one that killed me when I was 11. Practically killed me. I thought it was going to kill me. And since then I did it 7 times with the troop. And this year in March will be my 20th time, if you count all the times as a scout and an adult.
I think the father and son canoeing down the Delaware River.
Probably the canoe trip. It was extremely aggressive. We probably broke camp. I don't think we stayed in one location more than 2 nights tops. Basically every night you're breaking camp, rowing to the next spot, setting up your tent. It was exhausting.
I did the Resica Falls with the first fawn run.
So I think the first trip we did was Resica Falls in '68, and '69 we did the first high adventure, which was
To Lake George when man landed on the moon.
when we got there. They had organized 5 boats. They were old antique. Even in those days, they were antiques.
Just canoe trips, making sails, going across big lakes, and
we made a canoe sail and sailed our canoe when it was windy. You could put up a canoe out of your poncho, so we kind of engineered it, and we were able to sail through the lakes, which was pretty cool.
The Adirondack canoe trip, yes.
the Adirondack canoe trip, because it's just a great time for spending 2 weeks with the same crew and enjoying the outdoors, but also a lot of water.
A favorite camping trip is the Adirondack canoe trip.
Philmont. Oh yeah, Philmont.
Philmont is really the pinnacle for what we do.
Philmont. We all went on Philmont. The swans at Philmont.
Philmont. It was the second time I went, and we were on Phillips Mountain on July 4th, and it was snow-topped. And I remember sitting there watching the stars in shorts sitting on snow on July 4th. And it was just an awesome time.
Sitting in the tent on the 20th of July at Lake George when we were listening to men land on the moon with our transistor radio. I camped on the far side of the lake, and we were sitting around in the campfire in the tent or something. We were listening to a transistor radio with them.
Biggest televised event of your lifetime. And you had to listen to it on the radio.
And we had to listen to it on the radio. That's all right. You know,
our Philmont trip was a blast. Taking the train out from 30th Street was a long journey, but then we got there and had some great hiking, and Mount Baldy. We climbed Mount Baldy, and just some great memories.
Radnor Scouting is more than a troop. Over the years, Venture Crew 284, Pack 284, and most recently the addition of girls in the Trailblazers of Phoenix Patrol. Regardless of the location in the cabin or the name on its door, Radnor Scouting has a long lineage of preparing young scouts for whichever path life leads them.
So I helped restart the pack back when he was a first grader. We had about 5 or 6 boys, and now I think it's an active pack with over 100 scouts. So it's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun that we got scouting really geared up here in Radnor Township. And every year I think we have 5, 6, 7 boys earning Eagle Scout, which is fantastic. It's great to see the boys achieve that.
I'm a lifeguard, if I didn't mention that earlier. So I do use my life-saving skills and first aid merit badge skills all the time. And it's painful.
And Ned Irving fell and split his knee on a rock, and the skin peeled back, and he was a mess. And we bandaged him up, did our first aid, and the older boys put him on their shoulders and went to the end of Tengue Mountain for the pickup.
Most of my time in school, like aside from, well, elementary school was in the pack, and then middle school and high school, so I really can't think of growing up without it. You know, like there's a million different things I could talk to you about.
Experiencing things that most other kids wouldn't do that age, outside, and going on like different like adventures, kind of, with like friends that I'll be friends with for the rest of my life.
While the Scouts' motto is be prepared, however, things don't always go as planned.
My worst camping experience was actually my first trip. We went to Hawk Mountain.
I have to admit, I don't love rain, but I've come to be okay with it.
When we went on the Appalachian Trail and got snowed on.
At Mount Washington, and the raccoons attacked the trash, and I was in a hammock watching them.
We were at Delmont and froze almost to death in the cabin.
Went with Ulysses on a camp.
ATs. What we call the cold and wet AT. So the year before, we had snow, like 3 inches of snow, and it was like 19 degrees or something like that, and I thought that was terrible.
I'd say the worst camping experience was father and son weekend at Chesapeake when it poured 24/7, so we slept in the back of our station wagon. We didn't really camp.
But it was April Fool's Day that night, and we got 6 inches of snow on our tents, and nobody knew it was coming. And it collapsed all the Grifflon tents, so the tent poles were sticking up, but the tents were flat. And so we were all buried under snow. And the older guys, which I was at that point, went around digging people out all morning. It was great. And
oh, we had a hurricane or just a big storm hit us on the Outer Banks.
We got soaked so bad. I'm trying to remember where we were. It was raining.
Maybe when I was about 12 or 13 years old at Delmont.
I set my tent up down by the, I think we're in the Adirondacks, down by the water, and that night the water rose and we floated away. So it wasn't a really great experience, but one we can learn from. So
Couldn't find Mike Miller.
It was pouring, like, I mean, monsoon level pouring.
Being a brand new scout, I was totally unprepared.
The tents were being wiped out with rainwater coming down.
And none of us were ready for it. And I froze.
And we're almost smoked out.
And it rained.
And we're digging trenches, you know, to divert the rainwater.
And all the tents collapsed around everybody. We had to move indoors as some of the tents got picked up off the ground, just completely off the ground, got caught up in power lines above the campsite.
And my sleeping bag got wet, and
the staff comes out, you know, the junior assistant scoutmasters comes over and is like,
but cold and rainy.
We didn't follow the rules of proper placement of a tent, so at that time we had the Griffons and we had a stream running through our tent the whole entire night.
You know, you can't dig trenches here. The New York State Park people won't let you. And we're like, well.
And we spent the night in the vans, and the next day had to try to piece everything back together, and I don't actually think we were successful.
That's a great question. I can't think of a bad camping experience. Certainly there were periods where you were miserable.
Went with Niall and Will on a camping trip instead of Edward. Every Appalachian trail ever.
When it was about 2 degrees outside.
And everything was extremely soaked. And I remember being very cold and very wet on that.
Where are they, dude? It's like 10 o'clock at night. It's monsoon raining. They're not coming to check, man.
They're all, it always rains or it snows.
And it's a positive and a negative because we got attacked by hornets. And when that happened, we decided to make the new patrol Hornet Patrol. And now I found out today that we have bees being kept at the cabin. So I think that's great.
And I think they actually cut summer camp short that year. And we had to all drive back early because everything was destroyed.
The ground tarp under the tent, and it's like being filled with water like a balloon. You know?
And I had KP and I had to clean pots outside.
And it's like sleeping on a waterbed, and then there's just water pouring out through the whole thing, and you know, you've got probably...
And my hands almost froze off.
We were in the Griffon tents.
You know, you left the packs outside the tent under a rain tarp, but it's not going to rain tonight, so you didn't put the rain cover on you.
I think that was the low spot. That was really dreadful.
That morning, someone soaked the inside of the pot, so we all had the runs, but we were hiking anyway.
But I persevered and came back.
I say it's the worst trip, but it's one of the ones I remember with some degree of fondness. You know, the worst trip is a relative term. They're all fun. It's just the challenges are what make them memorable.
Never had
never have a bad one.
Didn't freeze or rain or snow or monsoon or...
Never had a bad one.
Never had a bad one?
I wouldn't admit to it.
At the core of Scouting is the Merritt Badge program, in which Scouts learn a wide variety of skills and life lessons.
I think the most challenging messages in Merit Badges are the ones that take so much time. Personal finance and cooking, they're so hard. You know, I think those who are working on them realize how challenging they really are.
Favorite one is Pioneering Merit Badge, building a pioneering tower at the National Jamboree in 1973 in Moraine State Park.
Doing the backpacking Merit Badge when I was able to go to Philmont.
What about Harvey?
Yeah, you cut yourself.
Henry cut his hands. You got 2 stitches from Harvey. 4 stitches from Harvey.
All Lake George, and he didn't have to make dinner that night.
So I always liked doing the canoe Merit Badge. Obviously I got that myself and then would help at summer camp do that over and over again.
Life-saving because I'm now a lifeguard and it helped me out a lot. When my instructor for lifeguard training asked me, what do you do with a tooth if it falls out? And I said, you put it in milk, and everyone else looked at me like, what are you thinking about? And I was like, I know. And then she was like, wow, that's crazy. That's right. And everyone was so shocked.
Well, I'm the Cookie Merit Badge counselor, so I'd say most of the scouts probably have bad memories with Cookie Merit Badge. I think it's good just to watch them grow and watch them progress through it. It's a hard merit badge, but to see their cooking skills increase, I think is really rewarding for me, and trying to motivate them to finish it is probably a bad memory for me.
Cooking. Cooking is the ugly. If you ever do cooking, you'll know.
One of the ones that was really interesting was surveying, and a guy named Dr. John Myers, who was a professor at Villanova, brought all the tripods and everything for surveying merit badge. And we did that, I think it was the second trip to Lake George, and it was really cool. It was something I had never thought of or done before, and we had a great time doing it, and kind of plotting all over the campsite and laying out a map and things like that. So ever since, I've been very interested in map and compass and all that sort of stuff, thanks to Dr. Myers.
The troop currently meets at the Scout Cabin, which is an old one-room schoolhouse. After meeting there for 50-some years, the Scouts, under the Friends of Troop 284, were able to purchase the cabin. A series of improvements and renovations are almost completed.
It's a place teeming with history.
Just what a great space it is for the boys, and I think just the history of it.
This is not just our experience; it's 100 years of experience. So,
and just seeing all the pictures on the wall, and just seeing the history of the troop, and
we have pictures on the walls from the 1950s. Those scouts that are still living there are scouts in their 80s and 90s from this troop. They've all had experiences that we have. So it's not just our generation, it's 100 years, decades of people. So I think my favorite experience is knowing the rich history that we have with the troop.
The June Roundup was always special at the Scout, and still is. It's just a great family event.
June Roundup?
Yeah, June Roundup.
To celebrate scouting.
Everybody came, everyone's family came in.
It's a great event where we traditionally award Eagles every year.
And there was like a big picnic at the cabin, and I always thought it was nice to have not just all the scouts there, but everybody there with their family and eating and doing sort of like one ceremony with everybody kind of outside.
And it's just an awesome event and lots of great memories of different advancement and recognition that I received and I've been able to give to people over the last number of years.
So one time we went in the basement when the basement was still a dirt floor. It was raining outside, it was the patrol competition, and we had to do flint and steel in the basement. And so we lit fires, quick fires in the basement, smoked it all up, couldn't breathe.
Starting fires in the basement was also my favorite cabin experience.
Favorite memory? I don't know. I've got so many memories, and I guess the renovation at this point is my most recent memory, and it's...
Favorite memory about the Scout Cabin is, I think, the renovations we're doing now.
With the electric fence. There was an electric fence around the cabin for the cows.
We had great times when we were little, and we used to jump over the fence, electrified fence.
We found out that if you touched 2 of the wires, you would get shocked.
And that was always fun going into the field, because the field was sort of day to day, it was off limits. And go out in the field and do map and compass. And you had to walk out and then come back to a post. And then fast forward 40 years, now we own that field, and we just walk from the front door out into the field. So it's rewarding to see that we now own the cabin and the 2.5 acres, and we're able to go out and just use the field every single day.
Their current cabin was built in 1882 as the Radnor Schoolhouse No. 7. The use as a school was short-lived, closing in 1912. The property and cabin was ultimately owned by the Montgomery Scott family. The family leased the property to the troop for $1 a year, starting in 1961. The cabin required maintenance and upkeep by the Scouts over the years, including windows, a new roof, wiring, painting, and basement renovation. The empty bell tower was removed with the roof replacement. In 2013, the Montgomery Scott family planned the sale of land, including the cabin. Radnor Township moved to preserve much of this land as public space and worked with the newly formed Friends of Radnor 284 to arrange the purchase of the cabin for Scouts. In 2018, the Friends of Radnor 284 took ownership of the cabin and expanded land that extended past the fence into the cattle field, expanding the property to 2.2 acres. The troop first used the expanded field in September 2018. Cabin renovations began in August 2019 with the deepening of the basement, addition of a basement door, outdoor quartermaster storage, tool shed, and the great porch. At the June Roundup, we will bring to a close the cabin renovations and centennial celebration. The bell in its new tower will be tolled again to ring in the next 100 years.
Everyone leaves scouting with fond memories. They also leave with skills that last a lifetime.
Almost everything that we do in Scouts is applicable. You know, the knots people don't feel are relevant until they need one. You know, knots are really actually something that are handy. When you know them, they do come in handy. First aid is basics, you know, it's things that we need to know. I think every piece is interesting, whether it's from beekeeping to automotive maintenance to wilderness survival. You know, they're all experiences, and the more experiences you have are great. You know, that's what life is about, so they're all good.
The thing I learned to use the most is the leadership that I learned. In fact, I tell the boys now all the time about going to NYLT and then getting into training in the restaurant business and realizing that I already knew the information they were teaching us.
So the organizational skills and the planning skills to getting the stuff done. You know, leadership, just the leadership skills that, you know, the troop talk is, you know, like I said, we had a lot of kids.
Is a lot of the leadership that I learned. You learn a lot of leadership traits about being prepared for meetings and being prepared for what you're going to be working with and doing for the day, and at work, in other volunteer organizations, and still with Scouts. It's that leadership which is critically important for us to teach the current Scouts going forward.
Logistics, helping the troop figure out what has to be where and how to put it together and how to get everything organized.
I'd say being able to start a fire out in the woods when you don't have a lot of resources.
I tie square knots for my shoelaces.
Sort of idea of leaving things better than when I found them, from like going camping and leaving no trace. Definitely taking that with me seriously. And
so I do use my life-saving skills and first aid merit badge skills.
Communication, for sure. And I've taught communication merit badge for the last 15 years or so. And I learned how to stand up in front of someone. I was very, very shy when I was in elementary school. So as a patrol leader, I learned to stand up in front of the troop and give presentations, and it made me come out of my shell a little bit. And by the time I was senior patrol leader, I could easily talk in front of 100 people, and it wasn't scary like it was when I was an 11-year-old.
While all Scouts may have gone on the same trip, they each leave with a different set of memories for the experience.
My most memorable experience with 284 was my first camp out, weekend camp out as a scoutmaster.
Promptly get lost, I think.
And we went up to the Delmont.
We were doing the orientation competition up at Resica.
We had ran the Scouts through an orienteering program.
The staff would go out and put the orange painted cans out in the woods, go 50 yards on this bearing, go to 50 yards out, go find these cans out in the woods.
And we came back, and it was getting kind of late in the day, so I said, okay, guys, why don't you go prepare for dinner?
And we were competing against the other tribes. It was Flaming Arrow versus, drawing a blank on what the other names were, because Flaming Arrow was the only one that counted because we were the best.
Jay Breitling, who was the patrol leader.
And who was our patrol leader then? Was it Kenny Overton?
I asked him how things were going, and he said, "Oh, Mr. Overton, they're not going very well."
Or Jay Breitling. Jay was there, Kenny was there, I was there, Matt Tucker.
Half hour later, and
but we were out in the woods, and Penner Straudenbach was there, Mike Fisher was there, different patrol, but we were.
Jay said, "Oh, there's one more thing."
I got lost.
I said, "Well, what's that?" I said, "We can't find Mike Miller."
I'm like, okay, well, those guys are beating us. They're going to do it faster than we are. We're going to win.
Half hour later, and
so we want to win. So we found the bearing to the next can. Okay, walk in a straight line over to there. Okay, 600 yards away through the woods. No problem.
Listen, he said, "Well, he never came back from orienteering."
All right, I'll go this way. I'll go do that. You guys go do that way, and then we'll meet back here.
A couple leaders to stay with the troop.
No problem. So I go off by myself in the woods. We always used to have these things we called bad, dumb, stupid ideas. And then we'd do them. So this was a bad, dumb, stupid idea.
Half hour later, and
so I go walking off in the woods 600 yards by myself. Of course, you can't walk a straight line in the woods.
And I took the senior scouts, and we were going out on a search party.
Then hike for a little while and then cross the creek. And
we were hauling off our boots to go across the stream to get to where we had been in orienteering.
And I'm like, I don't know why I'm telling this story because it makes me sound stupid, but
I couldn't find anything, and I heard some rustling.
A little while goes by. I don't know how much time went by, but quite a while went by. But it was still light out.
And we hear this little shout, "Hello!"
I'm standing there. What's the first thing you do when you're lost in the woods? Well, scouts always tell you, stand still. Scream for help. So I'm standing still. Hello, hello,
And it was Mike Miller.
And I get back to the creek where.
And I went, and there was a bear cub.
It wasn't a baby bear. It was an 8-foot grizzly that was transplanted to Resca Falls.
Ran as fast as I could.
But it's 100 yards away, so I slowly back down on the other side of the hill.
And I didn't have any idea where the heck I was.
So I hear a car. I'm standing there in the woods, and I'm like, a car, really? And
then I heard a car go by.
20 yards away, 15 yards away, an ambulance goes through the woods. And I'm like...
And I turned out I was near a road, and then I gradually found my way back.
Are you kidding me? So I walk over to this road. It was the road we hiked in on.
Half hour later, and
just like nobody had even noticed I was gone. Like, hey, where'd you go? Because it was still light out, so it was alright. But yeah, ran into the bear in the woods. Still 30 years later, I go to the woods every year to go hunting. I still haven't seen a bear out in the woods since then. I think it was 30 years ago.
Radnor Troop 284 has been an important presence on the main line for almost a century. We are dedicated to the ideals of scouting and strive to graduate youth of high moral character, emphasizing the goals of scouting, which include citizenship training, character development, and personal fitness.
Now, you were also in 284 not only as a scout. What were you for Cub Scouts?
It was Roland Elementary School.
Roland?
Roland Elementary School. It's since closed down. It closed down when I was in middle school, high school.
Was that a Radnor School District?
Yeah, Radnor School District, right behind the Radnor High School.
The path to Eagle Scout starts at an early age. While the Scouts may think it's all about the fastest car at the Pinewood Derby or how high their rocket can fly, it is much more than that. Radnor's Cub Scout packs provide an excellent foundation for scouting. Always on the forefront, Radnor's Pack 284 was one of the first in the council to have the Lion program for kindergartners. The Lion program encourages youth to learn and explore through hands-on, high-energy activities. Cub Scout ranks starting in kindergarten with the Lions, progressing to Tigers in first grade, Wolves in second grade, Bears in third grade, and Webelos in grades 4th and 5th. The highest award in Cub Scouts is the Arrow of Light. The award goes to Cub Scouts who have completed the Webelos rank and prepares them to become Boy Scouts. Much like the packs at Roland and Rosemont elementary schools, there have been several different Cub Scout packs in Radnor over the last 100 years. Currently, the troop supports 2 Cub Scouting programs in Radnor: Pack 284, based at Wayne Elementary, and Pack 19 at Ithan Elementary, which have prospered over the last decade with over 100 youth members. Each grade meets as a den where parents work together to help lead the Cub program. The focus remains on exploring the outdoor world, promoting good citizenship, volunteering, and ever-expanding STEM activities. Signature events of Radnor Cub Scouts to include overnight camping at local museums in the winter, family camping and hiking trips, and the Pinewood Derby. The Cub year concludes with Blue and Gold Awards Dinner, a family campout at Ridley Creek State Park, and walking in the Radnor Memorial Day Parade. When the Boy Scouts of America started to enroll girls, Pack 284 was the first in the council to admit girls. Those girls have moved up the ranks, now part of Troop 284G, and use the moniker of the Trailblazers. While the Scouts of 284 have started their journey to Eagle in one of the many Radnor Township schools over the years, they all end that journey in an old one-room schoolhouse, the Scout Cabin.
You were a leader, not a scout in 284, correct?
I was a scoutmaster.
You were a scoutmaster.
Not a scout.
Okay. Were you a scout as a youth?
The Second World War took all the scoutmasters. There were no scouts.
Gotcha.
We started, gone.
And then I came back in my college summers and helped lead the troop as an assistant scoutmaster through the Adirondacks and, their summer expeditions.
I was the troop committee chairman of Troop 284 for about 15 years, during several scoutmasters.
I was assistant scoutmaster, trying to figure out the years. I think probably 2010 to around 2018.
And I said, fine, I'd love to get involved. So one day I came home from work, and there was a stack of file boxes on my front porch with a note saying, "Thanks for volunteering to be the chairman of the summer camp committee."
Well, I took over after Tim Sears had been scoutmaster, and he made it easy because he did such a good job, and he had everybody doing so well. And
Bill Ferguson was the scoutmaster.
And my last year as a assistant scoutmaster was leading the scouts through the Adirondack canoe trip as well. So.
Associated with 284 since 1991. I'm an assistant scoutmaster.
With Doug Corkill, or Mr. Corkill was our scoutmaster. His son was Doug.
Had a couple of assistant scoutmasters that were just outstanding.
Adult volunteer here for going on almost 3 years when my son joined the troop.
I had 16 assistant scoutmasters go on the camping trip.
Hi, I'm Clark Pyatt. I'm currently the scoutmaster of Troop 284.
We had great adult leaders back in the 70s and 80s. Phil Bolden, Ed Preem, Tim Sears, some of the older guys, Bill Ferguson, Frank Warner.
So Dick Corkill was our scoutmaster for the first part, then Bill Ferguson took over for a year, then Phil Bolden, I think, was the official scoutmaster, but they did it as a team, so towards the end I didn't even know who the scoutmaster was because the boys were leading it anyway, right?
Tim Sears was always around. He was like the head assistant scoutmaster.
Mr. Overton was scoutmaster, and Mr. Sullivan was scoutmaster first, and then Mr. Overton was scoutmaster after that.
So I helped restart the pack.
Dick Corkill was the scoutmaster at the time. Bill Ferguson was an assistant scoutmaster, and I believe the troop committee chairman was Mr. Preem.
Scoutmaster Mr. Corkill was on that trip. So we had our one, I think we only had one adult. Today they would require more adults, but back then, one adult. It was really cool. We had a great time.
Mr. Murray, Charles Myers helped for a while. So we had a great group, and then there was about a 15-year hiatus that I took, and I came back, and then it was Eric Jansen, Irv Stern, Dave Partridge, Glenn Hughes, all helped with Cub Scouts, Aaron Waddell, and now we've got a whole new generation of adult leaders, all fantastic, with a fantastic group of youth who are, you know, all fantastic boys.
My first camp out, weekend camp out as a scoutmaster, and
Mr. Overton, Ken and Keith Overton's dad, he was our scoutmaster for a number of years. Mr. Sullivan, he was a scoutmaster for a number of years.
And now we've got a whole new generation of adult leaders, all fantastic, with a fantastic group of youth who are, you know.
I had two Dr. Myers. There was Dr. Mayer and Dr. Myers. We always confused which one was which. One was a cardiologist at Bryn Mawr, one was a professor here in Villanova, across the street.
And was assistant scoutmaster for a number of years and 4 years as scoutmaster.
A great time, great learning experience, and had a lot of good men that were the scouts.
But, you know, I'd be remiss, and the one thing I would want to leave or leave as a note is a deep appreciation for what the leaders did for scouting. That if it hadn't been for them to be exposed to things, and the time that they committed, only as an adult do I think back now on the commitment of the time and resources that they gave to it. When you're a scout, you don't think anything of it. You just, oh, well, that's what everybody does. Come to find out, no. And they instilled, you know, what scouting was all about. So, thank you.
Well, the wall-to-wall sunshine that Dave was just talking about provided the perfect backdrop for a special event today that was years in the making. The last one-room schoolhouse in Radnor Township was beautifully restored to its former glory. And Action News reporter Catherine Scott has more on the final piece that was just installed and the significance of today's ceremony.
There were some delays at the very end. They needed the right conditions to raise this bell tower, and they certainly got them today.
Under blue skies and sunshine, the bell tower was hoisted off the ground, lifted atop the last one-room schoolhouse in Radnor Township. The building has been used by the Boy Scouts, Radnor Troop 284, since the early 60s.
I grew up in this troop. I was the scoutmaster for 6 years.
Eric Jansen is now president of Friends of Radnor 284. His sons also went through this troop. About a year ago, much-needed maintenance and construction began on the building.
While we were doing the construction, we thought, okay, this is the time to put the bell tower back up.
Jansen explained the bell was stolen, and later the tower came down in the early 80s, too damaged to be raised again. So they enlisted an architect to replace the original and general contractors to see it through.
John Totes, the architect who is working with the Scouts, designed, and we had that custom made, and we had to prepare that pedestal sitting on the roof. I believe the bell tower weighs about 1,500 pounds.
The building was mostly finished last fall, but they needed the right conditions to raise the tower, in addition to the green light to operate after being sidelined by coronavirus.
The 6 weeks that we sat out, didn't help, but the weather conditions had to be perfect. The ground had to be dry.
As for the stolen bell, Jansen researched what it would have looked like and took his search online, eventually pinpointing a bell in the Finger Lakes region of New York.
In the 60s, they would ring the bell to start the meetings. We'll probably use it the same way. We'll, announce meetings and When we have special events here, we'll ring it.
This is something to celebrate, but of course they can't do that in person right now. They're hoping to have a formal celebration when they can. In Radnor.
As the 100th year of Radnor Scouting was heading to the end, with the June Roundup and summer camp on the horizon, overnight both Radnor Scouting and country changed. The global pandemic of coronavirus, or COVID-19, hit the United States, bringing all events to a standstill. The March Court of Honor was canceled as social distancing was the new norm. Radnor 284 switched to online meetings, and the virtual cabin was born. Meeting and merit badges took place on Zoom, as everyone stayed quarantined at home. The much-anticipated Adirondack canoe trip was canceled. Luckily, the troop was able to put together a Western PA summer trip that included biking, hiking, whitewater rafting, some history, and of course, a much smaller canoe trip.
Den Chief, bring the Weeblos to the ceremony.
The March Court of Honor and the June Roundup took place in early August. The new Scouts from Pack 284 received their Arrow of Light, officially crossing over to the troop. The freshly minted Eagle Scouts got the Court of Honor and recognition they deserved.
My pleasure now to introduce to you these 5 excellent young men who have earned the rank of Eagle Scout. John Jansen. John just completed his senior year at Radnor High School. Leo just completed his senior year at Radnor as well. And Edward is entering his senior year at Radnor High School. Ulysses is also entering his senior year at Radnor High School. Henry is entering the 11th grade at Radnor High School. The Boy Scouts of America is proud to award the rank of Eagle Scout in recognition of successful completion of the highest to all of the requirements for the Scouting's highest rank.